Huh. There's no way I can do that. Absolutely not. Isn't that a bit harsh to say? Dealing with Alzheimer's is just too much hassle, you know? I have my mother to take care of, right? I pleaded with my husband to live together with my mother, who had developed Alzheimer's, but he flat out refused as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Growing up, my father passed away when I was young, and I was raised by my mother. I wanted to be of help to her in any way I could. Yeah, right. Taking care of such a person is just unpleasant. We might as well put her in a really cheap facility or something, don't you think? What's with that dissatisfied look? Don't tell me, you haven't given up yet? Just give up, it's impossible. Do these two even have a heart? Being rejected to this extent, even I couldn't help but feel down. All right, I give up on living with my mother. There you go. You should have just said that from the start. But it's really sad to give up so easily, don't you think? Poor mom. I clenched my fists, channeling all my anger into them. 2 years later. Now, my mother-in-law has developed dementia. We'll take care of her here, so you better take good care of her. Why do I have to do that? She's your mother. The anger towards my own mother, which I had almost forgotten, exploded. Don't get angry, all right? If you're going to talk like that, I have my own thoughts on the matter. I might just leave her in the mountains. My husband and mother-in-law will definitely pay for everything they've done, including what they did back then. My name is Alice, and I'm turning 50 this year. I've worked hard as a housewife since marrying my husband John, a former coworker, following his wish. We wanted to have children, but it was not easy, and we even tried fertility treatments. Let's not decide it's impossible just yet, let's give it a shot. But what if it still doesn't work? What if everything ends up being a waste? Don't worry about it. So, let's try together. He hugged me gently, and I remember feeling really reassured. It was the moment I felt truly loved by my husband. We continued with the fertility treatments, and just before I turned 30, we were blessed with a daughter, Julia. You did great. Thank you. From now on, let's do our best as a family of 3. Yes. I couldn't help but cry tears of joy for the safe arrival of our daughter. My husband was happy too, thinking that we could finally be a happier family than ever before. But there was someone who cast a shadow on our family time. You finally had her. I was really worried about what we would do if you couldn't have children. Hey, that's not something you should say. Well, it's true, isn't it? What value does a woman have if she can't even have children properly? Even though our newborn daughter was right there, my mother-in-law still hurled such heartless words at me. This wasn't the first time she treated me this way. It started when I first went to meet them for marriage introductions. So you're Alice? Nice to meet you. Feeling nervous, my mother-in-law hit me with a shocking statement. You kind of have a poor vibe, but what do your parents do? My father passed away when I was little. Now, my mother works part-time. Her expression turned even more severe than before. I see, that explains a lot. Excuse me? Her stern face suddenly turned into laughter. I was taken aback, but my husband immediately came to my rescue. It doesn't matter, does it? Besides, we're in the same boat. His father also passed away from cancer when he was in high school. You know, my father was a high earner, so he left us a lot of money. Unlike you. I was filled with anxiety about becoming a part of this family. However, I made up my mind when my husband held my hand tightly. In the end, we decided to get married, but as time went by, my mother-in-law's outrageous behavior escalated. What brings you here today? Is it bad that I came to visit? No, not at all. My mother-in-law started coming over unannounced after my daughter started kindergarten. That would have been fine, but she started treating me like a maid because she wanted to play with my daughter. What on earth have I done to her? Nothing, really. She probably just enjoys bullying me. Oh dear, we're out of snacks. Alice, could you go buy some? Excuse me? Why are you so surprised? I can't leave right now, so you go. Looking at my daughter, I could tell she wanted to go with me. Maybe she understood her grandmother's true nature even at her young age. I was reluctant to leave them alone together. Spending too much time with her could be a bad influence, I worried. Julia seems like she wants to go too. What are you talking about? Julia wants to play with me. Julia, let's play when I come back, okay? Julia just nodded silently. After that, my mother-in-law started coming over when Julia was not around. Especially during weekdays when my husband was not at home. She must be really mean to deliberately choose such times. Today, I came to teach Alice what being a wife is all about. I had a bad feeling about this. All I could wish for was her to leave as soon as possible. I didn't want to be in the same space with her for a single second. First, you should clean and do the laundry until I say it's okay. Understood. I thought it was better not to resist and just followed her instructions. I decided to play along until my mother-in-law was satisfied. After finishing all the chores, I reported back to her. The cleaning and laundry are done. I looked at the living room in astonishment. Done? What do you mean by done? Look at this place. The living room, which I had just cleaned, was filled with trash. At that moment, I understood. My mother-in-law had deliberately scattered the trash. To trouble me. Just for goodness sake, you can't even clean properly. Maybe you were raised badly. Stop playing dumb and get to it. I was angry at her actions, but I held back my rage and started cleaning again. Once I finished cleaning the living room, she spoke to me again. Alice. It's not just cleaning, you can't even do the laundry properly. Look, everything is covered in mud. The laundry was hanging on the balcony, and there was no mud in sight. She had deliberately dirted it. Until now, I had tried to deal with this on my own, but I realized that it was impossible. I decided to talk to my husband about my mother-in-law's actions. My mom? Got it. I'll talk to her too. Really? Thank you. Thanks to my husband's intervention, my mother-in-law stopped coming to our house. I was finally able to have some peace for a while. All the stress from being bullied by her seemed to lift off my shoulders. However, this peace was short-lived. You really had the nerve to tattle on me last time. How dare a daughter-in-law stand up against her mother-in-law like that? You've got guts. Please, just stop. Then I reported back to my husband again. And just in time, my mother-in-law came back again. It was a repeated game of cat and mouse. After years of this, my husband eventually stopped saying anything to his mother. Before I knew it, I was already 48 years old. My daughter, Julia, is now in college and living on her own. I'm gonna visit my parents' house today. Take care. It had been a long time since I had been back home. Trying to contain my excitement about seeing my mom, I headed to my parents' house. I had been feeling tired recently because of the constant nagging from my mother-in-law. But I knew that seeing my mom would help relieve some of that stress. Mom, I'm home. There was no response from my mom, who should have been at home. Worried that something might have happened, I hurried to the living room and found my mom, slumped on the sofa. Hey, what's wrong? Oh, why is Alice here? You came back home. My mom, answering my question, seemed quite different from before. She was staring blankly at one point. This sight made me feel an indescribable sense of anxiety. Why am I here? I told you I was coming home today. Did something happen? I've been forgetting things a lot recently. Forgetting things? Have you been to the doctor? Doctors? No, I haven't. Starting to get seriously worried, I convinced my mom to go to the hospital. I had never hoped more that my fears would be unfounded. Even in the car on the way to the hospital, our conversation was sometimes off. The test results show that your mother may have Alzheimer's. It hasn't progressed too far yet, but it could worsen rapidly in the future. Alzheimer's. And this was just the beginning. Hearing about my mom's condition, my mind went blank. My mom, sitting next to me, was also in shock. Who could have imagined this would happen? It's still in the early stages, but there are medications that can slow its progression. Is there a cure? The doctor paused for a moment before answering. His expression somber. A terrible premonition overwhelmed me. Unfortunately, with current medical technology, we can't completely cure it. I see. I felt pushed to the brink of despair. But my mom, perhaps concerned about me, smiled at me. I had to fight back tears. If I cried now, I knew it would only worry her more. It's out of our hands now. Doctor, may we go home for today? Yes, that's perfectly fine. We can also recommend facilities that provide nursing care when the time comes. Thank you. We'll consider it. Sure, just let us know. I don't really remember how we got back. Once back at my parents' house, we started discussing what to do next. What should we do? Anyone could end up like this. I'm fine. But I'm fine. I decided to go back to my husband. All the way home, I kept thinking about what I could do for my mom. Before I knew it, I was at the front door of my house. Hey, what's up? Why the long face? Actually, today. I shared today's events with my husband. Alzheimer's? You're kidding. It's true. It seems it's still in the early stages though. What are we gonna do now? I'm not sure yet. But I'm thinking of checking on her regularly. That might be a good idea. I'll try to show up as much as I can too. I was greatly comforted by my husband's words. He made me feel like I was not alone. I felt thankful once again that I married this man. From then on, my husband and I both went to see my mom. How are you doing? John, you came all this way. I'm on medication now, so I'm okay. That's good to know. If there's anything troubling you, please let me know. Thank you. I was nothing but grateful for my husband's concern for my mom. However, this did not last long. I went to see my mom on the weekends, sometimes even staying overnight. Apparently, my husband wasn't too happy about that. I'm going to see mom again today. What about you? Then, he sighed. Again? Isn't it about time you stopped? What do you mean? Going there every week isn't going to make a difference. I was angry at his words. He had been so concerned about my mom before. That's not true. But Alzheimer's isn't curable, is it? And of course, it was at that moment that my mother-in-law decided to show up. Is something wrong? Look, I told you before that Alice's mom has Alzheimer's, right? She insists on going again. I see. That must be tough. My mother-in-law looked at me and smirked. I didn't want to see that malicious look on her face. You think so too, don't you? Alice will eventually be forgotten anyway. That's true. She's working so hard for nothing. Unable to bear their attitudes any longer, I left the house. Either way, I couldn't bring such people around my mother. From then on, I decided to visit her alone. But even so, I had someone on my side. I'll go with you next time. But aren't you busy? Grandma has always been so kind to me, unlike some people. My daughter had never liked my mother-in-law. Maybe it was because she saw me being bullied by her since she was little. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was good to have my daughter with me. My mom seemed happy to see her granddaughter. We visited her several more times. And though my husband and mother-in-law kept making sarcastic remarks, I ignored them. It was at that moment. Can you come to the hospital? I have something to talk to you about. Got it. I'll be right there. I understood immediately. A call like this must mean that my mom's condition isn't good. Sorry for calling you in today. And how is my mom? About the test results from last time, frankly, they're not good. She's on medication, but it seems to be less effective than before. What does that mean? In the near future, she might even forget her family. So, I suggest considering the facility we talked about before. Maybe that's the best for my mom right now. Give me a moment to think, please. Of course. Here's a brochure if you'd like to take a look. Thank you. I had noticed that her forgetfulness was getting worse recently. Our memories didn't match up more and more. I was torn. Is it really okay to put my mom in a facility? Then, I made up my mind and went home. What? No way, that's impossible. Don't talk like that. Alzheimer's is such a hassle. We already have my mother living with us, you know? I arrived home and immediately begged my husband to let my mom move in, but he flat out refused. My mother-in-law was there as usual today, but that doesn't matter. I still haven't repaid my mom for raising me. Right. Taking care of someone like that is unpleasant. You might as well put her in a cheap facility. What's with that dissatisfied look? You haven't given up yet? It's impossible, so just give up. Do these two even have hearts? I couldn't help but feel down after being rejected like this. Fine. I give up on living with my mom. See? You should have just said so from the start. But giving up this easily is just sad for your mom. I clenched my fists as if to pour all my anger into them. I immediately opened the brochure I had received and called them. Soon after, preparations were underway, and in a week, she was able to move into the facility. I'm sorry. I really wanted to live together. It's okay. I can't trouble you any more than this. Don't say that. I'm not troubled. Plus, I'll come to check on you again. At this age, I realized that I'm still a child. Time passed, and the disease progressed. 2 years later, with the progression of Alzheimer's and her weakening internal organs, my mom passed away. I found out later that she had instructed the staff to keep quiet about her condition, not wanting to worry me and my daughter. I knew it had come to this. It's not like it's Alzheimer's or anything. Either way, it's all the same. You're gonna work for this house from now on. Despite my mom's passing, my husband was completely unchanged. My mother-in-law didn't even come to my mom's funeral. Afterwards, I, eager to escape their clutches as soon as possible, somehow persuaded my husband and started working part-time. I wanted to save up funds while I could, planning to leave this house eventually. There's something I want to talk about. It was a month after my mom had passed away. Want to talk about what? Actually, my mom's had dementia for a bit now. Dementia! I acted surprised, but that wasn't the case. It was probably payback time for my mother-in-law. But she wouldn't understand that now. Also, we're gonna take care of her here, so you better look after her properly. He dared say this after rejecting my offer to take care of my mother. I owed him no such favor. Why do I have to do that? She's your mom. The anger towards my mother that I had almost forgotten exploded. There's no need to get angry. If you're gonna talk like that, I have my thoughts too. I'll abandon her in the mountains. I'd make my husband and mother-in-law pay for everything they'd done, including what happened just now. I swore to my mother. I decided to deliberately accept my husband's proposition. He complained, saying I should have agreed from the start, but I didn't care. Mom's gonna live with us starting today, so please. I understand. Enjoy it while it lasts. And then, my mother-in-law arrived. It was my first time seeing her since she developed dementia, and she was clearly different. She seemed like someone else. I gotta head out now, so I'm leaving the rest to you. You can count on me. I hadn't expected an opportunity to come so soon. After confirming my husband had left, I took my mother-in-law out. Where are we going? Somewhere really fun. So let's go together, okay? Okay. I quickly prepared the car and got my mother-in-law in. We headed to a secluded park on a small hill. It was a distance she could manage with her stamina. We're here, at the fun place. I left my mother-in-law at the park and drove to the office to get a divorce form. I quickly went back home, signed the form, and left the rest to fate. I then returned to my parents' house. About 2 hours later, my husband called. What the hell is going on? What do you mean? There's a divorce form and my mom's gone. He was panicking. I could tell, even over the phone. It was laughable. I can't live with you any longer, let's get a divorce. What? What are you suddenly talking about? So, please take care of the rest. What about Mom? She was gone before I realized, and I'm searching for her now. Why don't you go look for her instead of staying there? I told my husband I was looking for her, But of course, I wasn't. He had to figure out things on his own. I drove to my parents' house with a smile. Upon arrival, I prayed in front of my mother's portrait. 2 hours later, my husband called. "Did you find your mom?" "Yeah, I found her." I could tell from his voice that he was quite exhausted. "Where are you?" "I've been looking around." "You're coming back, right?" "Why would I?" "I told you, we're getting a divorce. I haven't forgotten what you and your mother did to me, and I have no intention of forgiving you." Then, my husband got angry. "Is that so? Then don't ever come back here." "Don't worry, I wasn't planning to." Soon after, we officially got a divorce. 6 months later, I landed a job at the company where my mother used to work. Everyone welcomed me, and I quickly got accustomed to the job. I was relaxing for the first time in a while when my smartphone rang. "Hello?" It was my ex-husband. "My mom passed away the other day." "You were right, I was wrong." "I'm sorry to hear that." "She's gone now, can we give it another shot?" My ex-husband was completely out of touch. Why on earth should I get back together with him now? Do you even hear yourself? Even without your mother, there's 0% chance of us getting back together. I'm sorry if this sounds harsh, but please don't drag me back into your life. I'm begging you, you're all I have. Any feelings I had for my ex-husband were long gone. I had decided to live on my own. Just live the rest of your life in regret. Goodbye. I hung up the phone and deleted his contact information. I could finally feel completely at peace. I didn't want that man to disturb me any longer. I had already started walking down a new path in life.